different angle. And since his shoes are now drawn, you're able to basically do this fun stuff right here. We didn't draw the heel, but you can kind of connect from the heel, curve within the center a little, and then come out to where you can connect it slightly there. And you basically do the same thing with the other shoe to where it comes out and comes up. And then the fun part where you just do a long strip down the top, avoid putting this part right here to here. And then you basically do little crosses for his little laces. This is kind of bullshitting it, but you know what? It's no. That's basically how you draw his shoes. The next fun part, we're gonna quickly do his tail. Now, his tail is a little hard to do, based on thickness. The first thing you want to do is figure out where his butt's basically at, because his butt and this one is kind of right here. So you want to start from one side, curve out, go in. You can go across the leg if you want, but to save time, you go in between the leg and then up. And you basically follow this rough line, because his tail's not super thin, but it's a little thin. But then once you reach the end here, you want to go in a little bit where these bold points are, or what I did. You come out with a point. Kind of like if you're trying to draw shark fins, well, like a stingray fin. And then you curve out. It's like a little arrowhead. Ugh. And the next thing is pretty easy because he doesn't have 5 fingers. The next thing we're gonna do is draw his little buff arms right here, as you notice, because it's like curving in where his arm is kind of like that. But since we have guidelines, we can kind of see where it starts. As you notice, his body's a little bare right here. So basically what you want to do is start from here at the bottom of the necklace, scoop out, go a little inwards, and then curve out. And you basically kind of do that within a little ways of the bold line right here. And then you curve out. Because his back is right here, and your shoulder doesn't come in right here. Like in this area. So it looks a little stocky. You don't do that. Because he has to have a little bit of armpit. So you have that part started. And the thing is right here, as you notice, his little glove part starts. He's a little buff, but you know, he has a glove. And the good thing about his hands, are that you can kind of do a little cylinder to get his arm started. And then with his hands, they're basically kind of like knives, but not entirely knives. Think of them as like 5-year-old drawing claws. You basically do curves, you don't do a hand like this. You don't do a hand like this for Ace. You don't do a hand like this for Ace. The thing with Ace is you basically kind of do this. And with his gloves, it mainly goes to his mid finger. So it wraps around. And we're going to save the horns on his shoulders for until we get his hands done. And the thing with his hands are, if you want it bent, you gotta figure out where the elbow's at. The elbow's right here. So you want to curve a little inwards and up. Because he does have long arms, but his arms aren't noodle shaped. Because baby boy doesn't have noodle arms. And the thing with his arm, well, his hands, is pretty easy. He doesn't have knuckles, if that makes sense. He's able to kind of do it like this, where it's curved. So basically it looks like that. And the good part about his horns, thankfully, is you can go from the bottom or the top. I usually go from the bottom to the top, where it's just 3 simple kind of rough loops. But in terms of a tutorial, you want to go halfway up on the main base horns that he has connected to his face. You want to curve outwards and then bring it curved slightly to right here, where it kind of matches the edge of the eyes. And you want to repeat that with the other side. And you basically want to connect from the same thing for all the rest of the horns on his face. And I always screw this up because I always draw his horns inwards. They used to be outwards, like facing outwards instead of inwards. But for the main part, I've been drawing them inwards. So what we're going to do is outwards. So you want to go from the base of the last horn you drew, and you want to curve out, and then connect to where the face would kind of be. And the fun thing about the horns on his arms is you just have to start a baseline of where they would be to where it's curved. And you basically want to do that because the horn has to be able to connect within the base of the skin in order to point outwards like that. So basically for these ones, you want to basically repeat what you did with his unicorn horn right here. And the good news is I can erase this. But the next thing we get to do is to draw the weird little triangular markings on his horns. The good news is the only horns that have multiple lines are these ones mainly. The rest of them just have singular points. The horns on his arms point downwards. Think of it like the start of an arrow. And then the base first ones on the bottom here, you want to, the thing, because it's basically an arrow, is pointing towards his face a little. And you basically keep doing this with every arrow that's on his horns, because they're pointing a little inwards. Think of it as like multiple arrows pointing towards his face. But it's once you get a hold of it, it's pretty easy. And since this is rough, it doesn't really matter. But this is basically how you draw Ace. It's pretty easy to draw once you get a hold of it. But there we go. Basically, it's been roughly maybe an hour or two. I think this concludes the stream, boys. Thank you for coming.